There's a secret window of time that most people sleep through. A moment so powerful that it can reshape your entire existence. Yet 90% of Muslims miss it every single day. What if I told you that the difference between a life of struggle and a life of divine abundance hinges on what you do in the 30 minutes after Fajrr prayer? Mufti Menk said something that should shake every believer to their core. He revealed that there exists a hidden blessing, a spiritual phenomenon so profound that the early Muslims guarded it like treasure. They understood something we've forgotten in our comfortable beds and snooze button culture. You see, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, completed his Fajrr prayer, he didn't rush back to sleep. He didn't scroll through notifications or check his messages. He remained. He sat. He absorbed something invisible yet transformative. And according to Mufti Menk, this single practice separated the companions who conquered empires from ordinary worshippers who merely went through the motions. But here's what's disturbing. We've been conditioned to believe that productivity means rushing through our spiritual obligations to get back to worldly pursuits. We pray far half asleep, then collapse back into our beds, thinking we've fulfilled our duty. Meanwhile, the greatest opportunity for divine intervention slips through our fingers like sand. What you're about to discover isn't just another religious lecture. This is about unlocking a dimension of existence that wealthy people would pay millions to access. Yet it's freely available to anyone willing to resist the pull of their warm blanket for just a few more minutes. The time of Fajrr carries a weight that no other prayer time possesses. While the world sleeps in darkness, while silence blankets the earth, something extraordinary happens in the unseen realm. The angels of the night shift, and the angels of the day shift meet. They gather, they witness, and according to authentic narrations, they bear witness to those who stand before their Creator when standing requires genuine sacrifice. Mufti Menk discovered through his deep study of hadith that this isn't merely poetic language. The Prophet explicitly stated that whoever prays Fajrr is under Allah's protection for the entire day. Not just spiritual protection, complete protection. Your affairs, your decisions, your encounters, everything falls under a divine umbrella that most people never activate because they never truly wake up for Fajrr. They just stumble through it. Think about the psychological brilliance of this timing. Your mind is fresh, unburdened by the chaos of the day. No emails have arrived to stress you. No conflicts have emerged to disturb your peace. No disappointments have occurred to weigh down your heart. You are, in this moment, as close to a pure slate as a human being can be while conscious. And it's precisely in this state of mental clarity and emotional neutrality that divine communication becomes possible. But there's a deeper layer that Mufti Menk emphasized in his lectures. The act of rising for Fajrr itself is a declaration. You're telling your nafs, your lower self, that it doesn't control you. You're establishing from the first moments of consciousness that your Creator's call supersedes your body's demands for comfort. This psychological victory at dawn sets the tone for every subsequent battle you'll face that day. The companions understood this with such clarity that they would spend the time between Fajrr prayer and sunrise in dhikr, in remembrance, allowing their souls to drink from a well that never runs dry. They weren't religious extremists or people with nothing better to do. They were building empires, leading armies, managing businesses. Yet they never sacrificed this sacred window. Why? Because they recognized that everything else in their day depended on getting this right. Now we arrive at the heart of what most Muslims don't know exists. There's a specific supplication, a particular state of being that activates between Fajrr prayer and sunrise. The Prophet called this time Ghanima, which translates to war booty, spoils of battle. Pause on that word choice. He didn't call it a blessing or a reward. He called it spoils, implying that you're claiming something valuable that others have left behind, something that belongs to those who make the effort while others sleep. According to Mufti Menk, this is when your rizq, your provision, your sustenance for the entire day is distributed in the heavens. Imagine a divine distribution center where blessings are allocated, where doors are opened, where paths are cleared. Most people are unconscious during the distribution. They show up later in the day wondering why things feel hard, why success feels elusive, why barakah seems absent. They missed the distribution window. But it goes beyond material provision. Mufti Menk said something that changed how thousands of his students approach their dawn. He explained that the state of your heart immediately after Fajrr becomes the energetic signature for your entire day. If you return to sleep, you're essentially telling the universe that unconsciousness is your default state. Your day will reflect that. Opportunities will pass unnoticed. Divine nudges will go unfelt. Inspiration will arrive when you're too cluttered to receive it. However, if you remain awake, engaged in dhikr, reading Quran, or even sitting in quiet contemplation, you're tuning yourself to a frequency that most people never access. You're telling creation that you're available, that you're conscious, that you're ready to receive what the divine wants to give you. And according to authentic teachings, Allah descends to the lowest heaven during this time asking, "Is there anyone seeking forgiveness? Is there anyone requesting provision? Is there anyone asking for healing?" He's waiting. The question is, are you awake to answer? The companions would sit after Fajrr not because they were forced to, but because they became addicted to the spiritual high that comes from this practice. They felt something tangible, a peace that doesn't come from worldly success, a clarity that doesn't come from caffeine, a strength that doesn't come from motivation videos. They tapped into the source, and everything else became secondary. Strip away the spiritual dimension for a moment and examine this practice through pure psychology and biology. What you'll find is equally stunning. Modern sleep science has discovered that the pre-dawn hours, specifically the time between 4 and 6 in the morning, represent the peak of something called the cortisol awakening response. Your body naturally produces hormones that optimize alertness, cognitive function, and emotional regulation during these hours. When you sleep through them, you're fighting against your biology for the rest of the day. You wake up groggy at 7 or 8, forcing yourself into consciousness when your body's natural alertness window has already passed. You reach for coffee, not realizing that you missed your body's organic energy surge. Mufti Menk pointed out that the Creator designed both the spiritual and physical realms to align perfectly. The time when your soul is most receptive is also when your brain is most capable. But there's more. Psychologically, the act of waking for Fajrr and staying awake builds what researchers call willpower reserve. Every time you override your desire for comfort, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with discipline and self-control. This isn't abstract. Your brain physically changes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and impulse control, literally becomes more robust through repeated acts of disciplined behavior. According to Mufti Menk, this is why people who maintain a consistent Fajrr practice often excel in other areas of life that seem unrelated to prayer. The businessman who never misses Fajrr finds it easier to resist financial temptations. The student who wakes for dawn prayer finds it easier to resist procrastination. The married person who starts their day with worship finds it easier to respond with patience rather than anger when conflicts arise later. You're not just praying. You're literally rewiring your brain for success, training yourself in the most fundamental skill a human being can possess, the ability to do what's right when everything in you wants to do what's comfortable. And this training happens most effectively at dawn, when the stakes feel highest, when your bed feels warmest, when resistance is strongest. Mufti Menk shared a story that illustrates the power of this practice in a way that theory never could. He spoke of a man who came to him drowning in debt, struggling with his business, feeling abandoned by Allah. The man prayed 5 times a day, fasted, gave charity, yet felt no barakah in his life. Mufti Menk asked him one question. "What do you do after Fajrr prayer?" The man responded exactly as most Muslims would. He prayed Fajrr, then returned to sleep for another hour or two before starting his day. Mufti Menk gave him a challenge that seemed almost too simple to be transformative. Stay awake after Fajrr for just 30 days. Don't add extra prayers if you don't want to. Don't read excessive Quran if it feels burdensome. Just remain conscious. Sit in remembrance of Allah until sunrise. The man accepted, skeptical but desperate. According to Mufti Menk, within 2 weeks, something shifted. The man's phone rang with a business opportunity he'd been pursuing for months with no success. A debt he thought was lost was unexpectedly repaid. But more than external changes, the man reported feeling different. More centered, less anxious, more capable of handling challenges that previously overwhelmed him. Mufti Menk emphasized that this wasn't magic or superstition. This was cause and effect in the spiritual realm, as reliable as gravity in the physical realm. When you align yourself with divine timing, when you show up at the moments that matter most to your Creator, reality itself begins to shift in your favor. Not because you've earned it through effort alone, but because you've positioned yourself to receive what was always meant for you. He discovered through decades of counseling Muslims worldwide that the single most common factor among those who described their lives as blessed, regardless of wealth or status, was a consistent relationship with the time after Fajrr. Not perfect attendance at Fajrr itself, because many people pray Fajrr, but those who remained afterward, who invested those precious 30 to 60 minutes, reported a quality of life that others envied but couldn't explain through conventional means. Mufti Menk said something that should be written on every Muslim's wall. The distance between you and the life you want isn't as far as you think. It's measured in minutes, not years. 30 minutes after Fajrr, sustained consistently, will transform your reality more than 30 years of inconsistent effort elsewhere. He wasn't exaggerating for effect. He was reporting what he'd witnessed thousands of times across every continent, every culture, every economic class. The formula worked regardless of who applied it. Knowing the benefit means nothing if you can't implement the practice. And this is where most people fail, not because they lack desire, but because they approach it wrong. According to Mufti Menk, the mistake people make is trying to become a Fajrr person overnight. They pray Fajrr one day, stay awake for an hour, feel amazing, then miss it for the next week and feel defeated. The cycle of inspiration and failure continues until they give up entirely. Mufti Menk discovered a better approach through working with people struggling with this exact issue. Start small, but start consistent. If you currently sleep through Fajrr or immediately return to sleep afterward, don't aim for an hour of worship. Aim for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes of sitting, of not going back to bed, of remaining in a state of awareness. Your brain needs to break the automatic pattern of prayer, then sleep before it can build a new pattern of prayer, then wakefulness. The second obstacle is the belief that you need to feel motivated to do this. Mufti Menk repeatedly emphasized that feelings follow actions, not the other way around. You will not feel like waking up. You will not feel like staying awake. The warmth of your bed will feel more appealing than worship, especially in the beginning. This is normal. This is expected. This is exactly why it's called a struggle, a jihad against the self. Those who wait for motivation never build the practice. Those who act despite lacking motivation discover that motivation eventually arrives, but only after consistency has been established. The third practical element Mufti Menk stressed was environmental design. Your bedroom should be set up for success, not failure. Phone charger across the room, not beside your bed. Alarm that requires you to stand to turn off, not one you can dismiss while half asleep. Clothing prepared the night before so you don't have to think when you're groggy. These seem like minor details, but they're the difference between someone who occasionally wakes for Fajrr and someone who never misses it. Finally, according to Mufti Menk, track your progress not by how you feel, but by whether you showed up. The days you don't feel spiritual but stay awake anyway are more valuable than the days you feel amazing. You're building character, not chasing emotions. Character is built through boring repetition, through showing up when it's inconvenient, through doing right when wrong would be easier. What happens to a person who maintains this practice for a year, for 5 years, for a lifetime? According to Mufti Menk, they become unrecognizable compared to their former self. Not in appearance, but in essence. There's a stability that others lack, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a confidence that doesn't come from worldly achievement, but from knowing they've fulfilled something sacred every single day regardless of what else happened. Mufti Menk said he could identify someone who had maintained a Fajrr and remain practice for an extended period without asking them. There's something in their eyes, something in how they carry themselves, something in how they respond to crisis. They've spent thousands of hours in the presence of their Creator during the most sacred window of time. That changes a person at a molecular level. It has to. The hidden blessing in early dawn worship isn't hidden because it's secret. It's hidden because most people refuse to pay the price of admission. The price is comfort. The price is extra sleep. The price is going against every instinct that tells you to stay in bed. But what you receive in return makes the price seem laughable in retrospect. Your life right now is the sum of your daily decisions, and your daily decisions are determined by your state of being, and your state of being is established in the first hours after you wake. If you begin with consciousness, with worship, with connection to something greater than yourself, everything else falls into place not because you're trying harder, but because you're aligned correctly. This isn't theory. This isn't wishful thinking. According to Mufti Menk and the testimony of countless Muslims who've applied this, it's a repeatable formula for transformation. The question isn't whether it works. The question is whether you'll be among the few who actually implement it, or among the many who acknowledge its truth but never change their behavior. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm sounds for Fajrr, you'll make a choice that determines which category you belong to. Choose wisely. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.